The warning sirens echoed through the crystal halls of Limera Prime for the third day in a row. Ambassador Thyra pressed her slim, three-fingered hands against the communications console, her silver skin reflecting the red emergency lights that bathed the command center. Outside the reinforced windows, she could see the night sky burning. The Krenith warships hung in orbit like dark metal predators, raining fire down on the shield generators that protected her city. How long until the shields fail? Thyra asked, though she already knew the answer would not bring comfort. 6 hours, Ambassador, replied Corpsmaster Ven, his voice trembling slightly. Maybe 7, if we divert all remaining power. But then we lose life support in the outer districts. Thyra closed her large, black eyes for a moment. The Valeric Collective had existed for over 2,000 years. 12 peaceful species working together, sharing knowledge, exploring the stars with curiosity instead of weapons. They had built schools, not armies. Their ships carried scientists and traders, not soldiers. And now, they were paying the price for their peace. The Krenith Empire had arrived 3 months ago with demands. Surrender your worlds. Submit to our rule. Serve our expansion. When the Collective refused, the Krenith had shown no mercy. World after world had fallen. The Valerics had defense drones and automated shield systems. But these were designed to protect against asteroids and solar storms. Not a military force that lived for conquest. The distress signal, Thyra said suddenly, turning to face Ven. It's the one we sent on all frequencies, across all known space. Any response? Ven's face fell. Ambassador, we sent that message 4 days ago. Even if someone received it, even if they wanted to help, they would need to be close, very close, and willing to fight the Krenith Empire. He paused. No one in the known galaxy would dare. Thyra knew he was right. The other peaceful civilizations were either too far away or too frightened. The military powers were aligned with the Krenithor, stayed neutral to protect their own interests. Her people were alone. She returned to the console and began composing another message, her fingers moving across the holographic interface. She would send it again and again. Even if no one answered, even if her people were remembered only as voices crying out in the dark, she would not stop trying. The building shook as another bombardment struck the shields. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere in the lower levels, people were screaming. Thyra steadied herself against the console and continued typing.
Ambassador?
Ven's voice cracked with emotion. We have a response. Thyra spun around so fast she nearly lost her balance. What? From who? I don't know. The signal is coming from the outer spiral arm. Region 771. That area is marked as unexplored in our databases. The message is being translated now. The console beeped. Text appeared on the screen in Valaric script, translated from an unknown language. The message was short. Coordinates received. Hold position. Relief en route. Thyra read it 3 times, her heart pounding in her chest. Relief en route? What does that mean? Who are they? I'm trying to extract more information from their signal, Ven said, his fingers flying across his own console. Their transmission method is unusual. Very powerful. Military grade, I think. They must have significant technology to reach us so clearly from that distance. How long until they arrive? Thyra asked. Ven calculated quickly. If they're coming from region 771, even at the fastest known FTL speeds, it would take at least 9 days. Ambassador, we don't have 9 days. We have ours. Thyra looked out the window again. Another explosion bloomed against the shield, orange and white, beautiful and terrible. Send a response. Tell them our situation. Tell them we're grateful, but they need to hurry. As Ven worked, Thyra allowed herself the smallest moment of hope. Someone had answered. After decades of sending peaceful greetings into space, wondering if they were alone, someone had finally answered their call. She just prayed they would arrive in time to find anyone left to save. High above the planet, aboard the Krenith flagship Conqueror, General Varaxis watched the bombardment with satisfaction. His 4 eyes tracked the failing shield energy with professional interest. The Valerics were putting up more resistance than expected, but resistance was futile. It always was, General, his communications officer reported. We intercepted another distress signal from the planet. They're calling for help. Braxis laughed, a harsh sound that made his subordinates shift uncomfortably. Let them call. Let them beg. No one will come. The galaxy has learned not to interfere with Kreneth's expansion. Sir, this signal is different. They received a response. From an unknown species. Braxis stopped laughing. Unknown? From where? The outer spiral arm, sir? A region we have not explored. The general considered this for a moment, then dismissed it with a wave of his clawed hand. Some primitive civilization that doesn't understand what they're involving themselves in. If they're foolish enough to come, we'll add their worlds to our empire as well. How long until the shields fail? 6 hours, General. Excellent. Prepare the ground forces. I want this planet secured before anyone else arrives to watch us claim our victory. Back on Lumera Prime, Thyra stood at the communications console through the night. Every hour, she sent updates to the unknown rescuers. Every hour, the shields grew weaker. Citizens were evacuating 2 underground shelters, carrying children and precious belongings, hoping the deep tunnels would protect them when the shields finally collapsed. Ambassador, you should rest, Ven said gently. You've been here for 16 hours. I'll rest when my people are safe, Thyra replied. Or when I'm dead. Either way, I won't abandon this post. 5 hours passed, then 6. The shields flickered and died with a sound like breaking glass. The first Kreneth missiles struck the surface, and the city began to burn. Thyra gripped the console and sent one final message to the unknown species. We are out of time. They're coming. If you can hear this, please hurry. Please. We are dying. She didn't expect a response. But 30 seconds later, one came. Hold on. We're coming. 60 minutes out? Thyra began to cry. Tears ran down her silver face as explosions rocked the building around her. 60 minutes. Could they survive 60 more minutes? She looked at Ven, who was staring at the message in disbelief. Pass the word, she said, her voice shaking but firm. Help is coming. Tell everyone to hold on just a little longer. Tell them we're not alone anymore. As the Kreneth forces descended on Lumera Prime, the Valerics retreated to their shelters and waited. In the darkness, holding each other, they whispered about the mysterious strangers racing across space to save them. No one knew who they were. No one knew if they would arrive in time, but for the first time in months, the Valerics had something they thought they'd lost forever. Hope. Admiral Sarah. Chen stood in the briefing room of the UHS and Indomitable, studying the holographic display that floated above the central table. The distress signal played again, translated into English by the ship's artificial intelligence. The voice was desperate, frightened, begging for help from anyone who could hear. That's the 4th message we've received from them, said Commander Marcus Webb, her second in command. Each one more urgent than the last. Admiral, we need to make a decision. Sarah was quiet for a moment, watching the hologram replay the fall of an alien city. Buildings collapsed under weapons fire. The translation AI had identified the aggressors as the Kreneth Empire, though humanity had never encountered them before. The victims called themselves the Valeric Collective. We've been in space for 30 years, Sarah said slowly. Exploring, mapping, hoping to find someone else out here. Now we found them, and they're dying. She looked around the table at her senior staff. Opinions? It's not our fight, said Lieutenant Commander Park, the chief tactical officer. We don't know these species. We don't understand their politics. For all we know, this could be a civil war, and we'd be picking a side without all the information. The Kreneth are invading multiple peaceful worlds, countered Dr. Alina Okonkwo. The fleet's xenobiologist and first contact specialist, that's not politics. That's conquest. If we ignore this, we're saying we only care about human suffering. We risk our people, Park argued. Our ships. For strangers, Sarah understood both perspectives. She'd been in the military for 23 years, rising through the ranks by making hard decisions. But she'd also studied Earth's history. She knew what happened when good people stood by and did nothing. Show me our fleet status, she ordered. The hologram changed, displaying 15 warships positioned in formation around the Indomitable, the pride of humanity's space navy. 5 destroyers, 6 frigates, 3 cruisers, and the Indomitable herself, a heavy battleship built in the orbital shipyards above Mars. "We're at full combat readiness," Webb reported. "Crews are trained, supplies are loaded, weapons are operational. We could jump within 2 hours," Sarah made her decision. "Send a response to the Valerics. Tell them help is coming. Navigation, plot a jump to these coordinates. Multiple short jumps, if necessary. I want us there in under 12 hours. Yes, Admiral." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each officer returning to their stations. Dr. Okonkwo approached Sarah as the others filed out. "Admiral, you should know something. I've been analyzing the data from the distress signal. The Valerics are physically different from us. Lighter gravity world, lower bone density, reduced muscle mass. And their ship design suggests they've never developed significant military technology. So they're pacifists," Sarah said. "More than that, I don't think they understand warfare the way we do. Their defensive systems are automated, reactive. They don't have tactics or strategy. They've never needed them." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She thought about Earth, about a world where everything wanted to kill you, where early humans had fought saber-toothed cats and survived ice ages, where nations had waged wars for thousands of years, learning cruelty and courage in equal measure, where even the weather could be deadly. Humanity had earned its strength through suffering. These Valerics had been lucky enough to never need it. "Then they need us," Sarah said quietly. "Get your first contact team ready. Once we've dealt with the Kreneth, we'll need to introduce ourselves properly." The next 2 hours were organized chaos. Throughout the fleet, crew members prepared for combat. In the armory of the Indomitable, Marine Sergeant James Rodriguez checked his squad's equipment. Powered armor, magnetic boots for zero-gravity combat, weapons designed to function in any atmosphere or vacuum. "Think they'll actually fight, Sarge?" asked Private Chen, no relation to the Admiral. "The Kreneth?" Rodriguez sealed his helmet and ran a diagnostic. "That's what the intel says. They're conquerors. Professional military. They'll fight." "I meant, are they ready for us?" Rodriguez smiled grimly. "No one's ready for us, Chen, that's the point. In the medical bay, doctors prepared for casualties. They'd trained for this. But combat against an unknown enemy meant unknown wounds." Dr. Sarah Klein reviewed the medical data on Valerics that had been extracted from the distress signal, as their biology is fragile compared to ours. She explained to her staff, "If we have any Valeric survivors to treat, remember that. What seems like a minor injury to us could be fatal to them. Gentle hands, people." In engineering, Chief Engineer Commander Jackson Torres inspected the reactor cores. Human ships were built with redundancy upon redundancy. 3 power systems where one would do. Double-thick armor plating. Backup systems for the backup systems. Other species, when humanity had finally shared their ship designs at scientific conferences, had called them paranoid over-engineering. "We're not paranoid," Torres had replied. "We're prepared." Now, as he walked through the engineering decks, he was grateful for every redundant system. If they were going into combat, they'd need every advantage their Deathworld paranoia had built into these ships. On the bridge, Sarah watched the countdown timer. 10 minutes until jump. She'd sent a message to Earth Command, informing them of the situation. The reply wouldn't reach her for days given the distance. She was acting on her own authority, her own judgment. History would judge whether she'd made the right choice. "Admiral," the communications officer called out. "Another message from the Valerics. They're under attack. Shields have failed. They say they have less than an hour." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Navigation. Are we ready?" "Yes, Admiral." "All ships report jump ready, and let's not keep them waiting." "All ships. This is Admiral Chen. We're jumping into an active combat zone. The enemy may outnumber us. They will definitely underestimate us. That's their mistake." She paused. "We're humanity. We survived the worst planet in the galaxy. We've fought each other for thousands of years and somehow learned to work together. Now someone else needs that strength. Show them what humans can do. Jump on my mark." The fleet aligned FTL drives building to full power. Sarah thought about her grandfather, who'd fought in the Middle Eastern wars, about her great-grandmother, who'd survived the climate disasters of the 21st century, about countless ancestors who'd faced impossible odds and survived. Mark's face twisted. Reality bent, and 15 human warships vanished, racing across the stars toward a species that had no idea what kind of help was coming in the underground shelters of Lumera Prime. Thyra held a frightened child, singing a soft song her mother had taught her. The building shook from explosions above. The Kreneth were coming, going through the city section by section. "Will the helpers arrive in time?" the child whispered. "I don't know," Thyra answered honestly. "But they're coming, and that means we're not alone." Above the planet, General Verixis received reports of complete orbital control. Ground forces were deployed. Victory was minutes away. Then his sensors officer spoke, voice confused. "General, we're detecting FTL signatures. Multiple ships. Emerging from jump in 30 seconds. Identify them," Veraxis ordered. "Unknown configuration, sir." "The signatures are strange. Very powerful. 15 vessels," Veraxis smiled. "So the fools actually came. Target them as they emerge. We'll destroy them before they understand their mistake." But as the human fleet materialized in the Lumera system, as Veraxis saw the angular, brutal design of their warships, as his sensors struggled to process their weapons' signatures and power outputs, his smile faded. These were not the ships of a peaceful civilization. These were the ships of predators. The human fleet emerged from FTL space like ghosts materializing from darkness. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Sarah Chen watched her screens light up with tactical data. 3 Valeric space stations, all showing heavy damage. 7 Kreneth destroyers in orbit around Lumera Prime, actively bombarding the surface. Smaller Kreneth ships everywhere, conducting what looked like an invasion force landing. "Get me a communication channel to all ships in this system," Sarah ordered. "All frequencies. Channel open, Admiral." Sarah spoke clearly, her words being translated in real time by the AI into every known language pattern detected in the system. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Humanity Space Navy, representing Earth and her colonies. To the Valeric vessels and stations, we have received your distress call and are here to render assistance. To the Kreneth Empire forces, you are hereby ordered to cease all hostile actions immediately and withdraw from Valeric space. You have 2 minutes to comply." In the underground shelter on Lumera Prime, Thyra heard the message through the emergency broadcast system. The voice was strange, the accent unfamiliar, but the words were clear. She grabbed Ven's arm. "They're here. The humans are here." "Humans?" Ven looked confused. "I've never heard of them." "Neither have I," Thyra said, smiling through her tears. "But they came." Aboard the Kreneth flagship Conqueror, General Veraxis listened to the human message with growing anger. 2 minutes. These primitives dare give me an ultimatum? He leaned forward in his command chair. "Communications, send a response." The channel opened. Veraxis's voice was cold and cruel. "I am General Veraxis of the Kreneth Empire. You have entered a legitimate military operation. The Valeric worlds now belong to the Kreneth. Leave immediately, or you will share their fate. We have 20 warships in this system. You have 15. The mathematics are simple." On the Indomitable, Sarah listened to the general's response. Commander Webb looked at her expectantly. Admiral Sarah checked her tactical display. The Kreneth ships were larger than the human vessels, but their power signatures were lower. Their weapons appeared to be energy-based, which meant shields. Their formation was loose, arrogant. They'd been winning for so long they'd forgotten how to expect resistance. "Open channel again," Sarah said. When the light turned green, she spoke one word: negative. Then she cut the channel and turned to her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Commander Park, you may fire when ready. Target the destroyers bombarding the planet first." Let's give the Valeric some breathing room. Yes, Admiral. Railgun batteries 1 through 6. Loading solid shot. Target lock acquired on Krenith destroyers 1 through 3. The Indomitable shuddered slightly as her main weapons fired. Unlike the energy weapons common in the galaxy, human railguns used electromagnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. They were simple, brutal, and devastatingly effective. The tungsten rounds crossed the distance in seconds. The Krenith shields flickered as they tried to stop the kinetic impacts. They failed. 3 tungsten projectiles, each weighing several tons and moving at a significant fraction of light speed, punched through the Krenith shields like they were made of paper. The first destroyer's main reactor took a direct hit and exploded, sending debris spinning into space. The second destroyer lost its entire forward section. The third was hit in the engine core and began tumbling. Lifeless. On the Conqueror, Vraxis stared at his screens in shock. What was that? What kind of weapons are those? Kinetic projectiles, sir, his science officer reported, voice shaking. Solid matter accelerated to extreme velocity. Our shields are not designed to stop physical impacts of that magnitude. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Return fire. The Krenith fleet opened up with their energy weapons, bright beams of focused power lancing toward the human ships. The humans didn't dodge. They didn't run. They took the hits on their thick armor plating and kept coming. Damage report, Sarah called out as the ship rocked from multiple impacts. Forward armor at 70%. Starboard section shows breaches on decks 4 and 5. Sealing bulkheads. No critical systems hit, reported the damage control officer. Good. All ships. Advance formation beta. Let's press them. The human fleet moved forward, and the Krenith commanders realized they were facing something new. Human ships accelerated hard, pulling maneuvers at speeds that should have killed their crews. Inside the Indomitable, Sarah and her bridge crew endured 6 gravities of acceleration, their bodies pressed into their reinforced chairs, their flight suits compensating as much as possible. On a Krenith bridge, a similar maneuver would have killed everyone. The Krenith evolved on a lighter world, their bodies not built for such stress. They watched in horror as human ships moved with impossible speed and aggression. How are they surviving those accelerations? A Krenith captain screamed into the command channel. General Vrakas had no answer. He watched 2 more of his destroyers die, torn apart by human weapons. All remaining ships concentrate fire on their flagship. If we destroy their command ship, the others may retreat. 8 Krenith vessels focused their weapons on the Indomitable. Energy beams scarred her armor. Explosions bloomed across her hull. Inside, damage alarms screamed. A fire broke out on Deck 7. Hull breaches opened in 3 sections. Admiral, we're taking heavy damage, Webb reported. Armor at 40%. We've lost 2 secondary weapons batteries. Sarah felt the ship shake around her. She'd been in combat before, in the brief conflicts between Earth and the Mars colonies before unification. This was worse. But she'd trained for worse. Humanity had always trained for worse. Damage control teams to affected sections. Engineering, I need power to forward railguns. Navigation, bring us about. If they want to focus on us, let's give them a target they can't ignore. Weapons, fire everything we have. The Indomitable turned into the attack, and her weapons roared. Railguns, missile batteries, point defense, lasers, and experimental plasma cannons all fired at once. The Krenith flagship's shields collapsed under the assault. The Conqueror tried to turn, to run. But a railgun round struck her engine section. On the bridge, Vraxis felt his ship die around him. This is impossible, he whispered. They should be fleeing. They're outnumbered. They're damaged. Why do they keep fighting? His science officer, bleeding from a head wound, looked at his console with wide eyes. General, I've analyzed their ship composition and crew quarters. I think I know why they fight like this. Why? Their home world. I have preliminary scans from when they entered the system. General, their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is corrosive. The indigenous life is aggressive. By all galactic standards, it should be uninhabitable. Vraxis stared at him. And they evolved there? Yes, sir. We're not fighting a normal species. We're fighting apex predators who clawed their way to intelligence on the worst planet in the galaxy. Another explosion rocked the Conqueror. Vraxis made a decision he'd never thought he'd make. All ships, retreat. Jump to Rally Point Gamma. The remaining Krenith vessels, less than half of the original force. Jump to FTL. They left behind their dead and wounded, fleeing from an enemy they couldn't understand, on Lumera Prime. People emerged from their shelters to see the Krenith ships gone and strange angular vessels in orbit. The bombardment had stopped. The invasion forces on the ground were surrendering or fleeing. Thyra stood in the ruins of her city, looking up at the night sky. They won, she said, her voice full of wonder. 15 ships defeated 20. How? Ven stood beside her, reading the data his portable console had captured. Thyra, you need to see this. I have preliminary information about these humans. He showed her the screen. Their planet should kill them, but it made them strong instead. How strong? Strong enough to save us. Aboard the Indomitable, Sarah surveyed her damaged ship. They'd won, but at a cost. 23 dead, 67 injured, and the ship would need weeks of repairs. But they'd won. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet, the communications officer reported. It's Ambassador Thyra. She's thanking us. She's asking if she can meet you. Sarah looked at Dr. Okonkwo. I believe this is your area, Doctor. Alina smiled, despite her exhaustion. First contact, Admiral. Let's go introduce humanity to the galaxy. The meeting took place in what remained of the Valaric Council chambers on Lumera Prime. Ambassador. Thera had insisted on hosting the humans on her world. Despite the damage, despite the risk, she needed to look her saviors in the eye. When Admiral Sarah Chen walked into the chamber, Thera's first thought was that the human looked heavy. That was the only word for it. Where Valarics were slim and graceful, built for a world with light gravity, Admiral Chen moved with a solid, powerful presence. Her muscles were dense, her bones clearly thick beneath her uniform. She looked like she could break Thyra in half without effort, but her eyes were kind. Ambassador Thyra, Sarah said, speaking slowly as the translation AI worked. Thank you for receiving us. I'm sorry we couldn't arrive sooner. Thyra felt tears on her face again. Admiral Chen, you arrived at all? That's more than anyone else in the galaxy did. You saved millions of lives. Our children will sing stories about this day for generations. Sarah smiled, but it was a sad smile. We did what we hoped someone would do for us. Though I wish our first meeting could have been under better circumstances. They sat at a table designed for Valarics, and Sarah's chair creaked under her weight. Dr. Okonkwo joined them, along with Commander Webb and Corps Master Ven. For the next 3 hours, they talked. Thyra explained the Valaric Collective, their peaceful philosophy, their shock at the Krenith invasion. Sarah described Earth, and with each detail, Thyra understood a little more about why these humans were so different. Your planet has how much gravity? Ven asked, his voice disbelieving. About 1.3 times what you have here, Alina explained. Which means everything on our world is heavier, denser, stronger. Our bones had to be thick to support us. Our muscles had to be powerful to move. We evolved under constant pressure, literally, in your weather. Thyra asked. You mentioned storms. Hurricanes with winds over 200 kilometers per hour, Sarah said. Tornadoes that can destroy entire cities. Floods, droughts, ice ages, heat waves. Our planet has tried to kill us 1,000 different ways. We survived by being adaptable. And the animals. Ven was reading data on his console, his eyes growing wider. It says here, you have creatures that hunt humans. That see you as prey. We had to learn to hunt back, Sarah said simply. Our ancestors fought predators with teeth and claws, while we only had rocks and sticks. We learned to make weapons. We learned to work together. We learned that sometimes survival means fighting. Thyra was quiet for a moment. We never learned that. The collective has existed for 2,000 years without war. We thought violence was primitive, unnecessary. The Kreneth taught us we were wrong. Violence is terrible, Sarah agreed. But the capacity for violence, controlled and directed at those who would harm the innocent, that's sometimes necessary. We spent millennia hurting each other before we learned to point our strength outward, to protect instead of conquer. Over the next week, as the human fleet helped the Valerics repair their stations and cities, word spread through the galaxy. The Kreneth Empire, humiliated by their defeat, tried to keep the news quiet. But the Valerics were not quiet. They broadcast everything. On the galactic communication networks, species from 100 worlds watched footage of the battle. They saw human ships take damage that should have destroyed them and keep fighting. They saw humans endure accelerations that would kill most sapient species. They saw a mystery species from an unexplored region fight with skill and ferocity no one had witnessed before. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from dozens of civilizations argued about what this meant. "They're dangerous," said the Xyloth representative. "Their translucent body shimmering with agitation. A species that aggressive could threaten us all." "They saved the Valerics when no one else would," countered the Threnan ambassador. Where were we? Where was the council? We watched the Kreneth commit genocide and did nothing. On Earth, the news was received with mixed emotions. Some people were proud. Others were worried about the implications. Earth's government issued a statement supporting Admiral Chen's actions and announced they would formally apply to join the Galactic Council. Meanwhile, the legend grew with each retelling. The human Marine who had survived 15 minutes in hard vacuum to repair a critical system. The destroyer captain who rammed a Kreneth battlecruiser rather than retreat. The medical team that worked for 30 hours straight treating both human and Valeric, wounded without pause. One story in particular captured the galaxy's imagination. The frigate Resilience, damaged and outnumbered, had been ordered to retreat. Her captain, Commander Lisa Martinez, had refused. With 40% of her crew dead or injured, life support failing, and hull breaches on every deck, she'd continued engaging 3 Kreneth destroyers. When her weapons were destroyed, she'd rammed one of them. The recording of her final transmission spread across the galaxy. "This is Commander Martinez of the Resilience. To any humans listening, tell Earth we held the line. To the Kreneth, you should know something about humans. We're very good at surviving things that should kill us, and we're even better at making sure the monsters don't survive to hurt anyone else." Martinez and her crew had survived. They'd been recovered by rescue teams, having endured conditions that would have killed most species. The recording made her a legend. In the Kreneth Empire, military commanders studied the battle footage obsessively. They saw techniques they'd never considered. Weapons they'd thought primitive. Tactics that relied on endurance and determination rather than technological superiority. General Varaxis, stripped of his command after the defeat, met with Kreneth intelligence officers. "They're not like us," he told them. "They don't fight to win territory or resources. They fight because someone needed help. That makes them more dangerous than any empire." "Why?" asked a young officer. "Because they'll fight even when it's not in their interest. They'll take losses that would make us surrender. They'll endure pain that would break us. They evolved on a world that hated them, and instead of dying, they conquered it. Now they're in space." Vraxis looked at the footage of the Indomitable, scarred and damaged but victorious. "The galaxy has apex predators now. We just didn't know it until we attacked their friends." 3 weeks after the battle, Admiral Chen received a message from Earth Command. She was to remain in Valeric space and begin formal diplomatic relations. The message also informed her that 50 more ships were being sent to establish a permanent human presence in the region. "They're taking this seriously," Webb commented as they read the orders together. "They should," Sarah replied. "We just announced ourselves to the galaxy by winning a battle against a major empire. Every peaceful species is going to want our protection. Every aggressive species is going to want to test us. Earth is about to get very busy." On Lumera Prime, Thyra stood in her repaired office. Looking at the human ships in orbit, Dr. Okonkwo had become a friend over the past weeks, patiently explaining human culture and history. Some of it was horrifying. Humans had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They'd developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They'd faced extinction dozens of times, and somehow, always pulled back from the edge. But they'd also created art that made Thyra weep with its beauty. They'd written philosophy that rivaled the collective's greatest thinkers. They'd looked at their violent history and said, never again, and built a civilization dedicated to exploring space peacefully. Their contradictions. Thyra said to Vin as they watched a human shuttle deliver supplies to a refugee center. They're survivors, Vin corrected, and they chose to use their strength to save us. That's what matters. In the underground networks where the galaxy's less savory elements communicated, a new warning spread. Don't touch human allies. Don't attack human ships. The Deathworlders have arrived, and they're not afraid of anyone. The Kreneth Empire, analyzing their options, made a choice. They sued for peace. The peace negotiations took place on a neutral station, orbiting a dead world halfway between Kreneth and Valeric space. Admiral Sarah Chen sat across from General Vraxis, with Ambassador Thyra on one side and representatives from the Galactic Council on the other. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Vraxis looked older than he had during the battle, his 4 eyes tired. The Kreneth Empire agrees to withdraw from all Valeric worlds, he said through the translator. We will pay reparations for the damage caused. We will respect Valeric's sovereignty going forward. So what guarantee do we have? You'll honor this agreement? Thyra asked, her voice cold. Vraxis looked at Sarah when he answered. Because the alternative is continued conflict with humanity, and my people have decided that is unacceptable. The Galactic Council observer, a being called Ambassador Quellen from the peaceful Nareth Federation, spoke up. The Council recognizes the validity of this agreement. The Kreneth Empire will be monitored to ensure compliance. With respect, Ambassador Quellen, Sarah said calmly, the Council was content to watch the Valerics die. Forgive me if we don't consider your monitoring sufficient. Quillen's translucent form flickered with what might have been embarrassment. The Council's inaction was regrettable. We are bound by many political considerations that prevented direct intervention. Then your system is broken, Sarah replied. The Valerics sent a distress signal that your entire council received. You watched them being destroyed and did nothing because it wasn't politically convenient. That's not peacekeeping. That's cowardice. The room went silent. No one spoke to the Galactic Council representative like that. But Sarah wasn't finished. Humanity is new to galactic politics, so maybe we don't understand all your rules and traditions. But we understand right and wrong. We understand that when someone calls for help, you answer. We understand that peace maintained through fear of getting involved isn't real peace at all. Quellen was quiet for a long moment. What would you have us do differently? Create a real defense force, Sarah said. Stop pretending that peaceful species can survive by simply being peaceful. The galaxy has predators. You need to either become strong enough to protect yourselves or ally with those who can protect you. Over the next 3 months, the galaxy watched as humanity made good on those words. Admiral Chen remained in Valaric space with an expanded fleet, helping rebuild what the Kreneth had destroyed. Human engineers worked alongside Valeric architects, combining advanced alien science with human durability and practical design. Earth sent diplomats to make formal contact with the Galactic Council. The meetings were contentious. Many species were uncomfortable with humanity's directness, their willingness to use force, their barely contained strength. But just as many saw them as salvation. The Nareth Federation, whose territory bordered the aggressive Kaldric's hegemony, reached out to Earth directly. Their message was simple. We've watched the Kaldric's expand for 50 years, taking our colonies one by one. The Council says they cannot intervene. Can you help us? Earth's response was equally simple. Yes. Within a month, human warships were patrolling Nareth space. The Kaldric's, having seen what happened to the Kreneth, decided their expansion could wait. They withdrew from contested territories without a shot being fired. The message was clear. Humanity would protect those who asked for protection. And no one wanted to test whether they'd fight as fiercely as they had at Lumera Prime. On Earth, Dr. Alina Okonkwo returned to give a lecture at the United Nations. The assembly hall was packed with government officials, scientists, and journalists. Her speech would be remembered for generations. "We spent centuries wondering if we were alone in the universe," she began. "We feared that if we found aliens, they might be hostile. We built weapons and ships assuming we'd need to defend ourselves. Now we know the truth. We're not alone, and we're not the ones the galaxy needs to fear." She showed images of the Valerics, the Nerith, and dozens of other peaceful species. These civilizations are older than ours, wiser in many ways. They've achieved things we're still learning, but they lack something we have in abundance: the ability to survive adversity. We're the survivors. We're the ones who fought our own planet and won, and now they need us. Some people say we're too violent, too aggressive. Maybe they're right, but our violence, channeled properly, can protect those who cannot protect themselves. Our aggression, directed at oppressors, can free the oppressed. Earth made us strong. Let's use that strength for something good. The speech went viral across Earth and beyond. It captured something many humans had felt, but couldn't articulate. They weren't the monsters of the galaxy. They were the guardians. 6 months after the Battle of Lamera Prime, the Galactic Council met in full session. Earth had applied for membership, and the vote was today. The debate had raged for weeks. "They're too aggressive," argued some. "They'll destabilize our careful political balance." "They saved the Valerics when we wouldn't," countered others. "They've brought peace to 3 sectors without conquering anyone. They've earned a voice." The vote was close, but humanity was admitted to the council. Sarah Chen, promoted to Admiral of the Fleet, represented Earth at the ceremony. She stood before thousands of delegates from across the galaxy and spoke the words that would define humanity's role in galactic civilization. "We come to this council not as conquerors, but as friends. Not as the strongest, though we will fight to protect the weak. Not as the wisest, though we will learn from those who came before us. We come as partners in building a galaxy where distress signals are answered, where peaceful species can thrive without fear, and where strength is used to defend, not to oppress." She paused, looking around the vast chamber. "Our planet tried to kill us. Our history is written in blood. We've made terrible mistakes and learned hard lessons, but we survived. And now we offer that survival to anyone who needs it. We are humanity. We are the Deathworlders. And we stand with you." The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species applauded. Others remained silent, uncertain. But from the Valeric delegation, Thyra stood and began a traditional Valeric song of gratitude. One by one, the delegates of other peaceful species joined her, their voices blending in harmony. On Lumera Prime, now fully rebuilt, a monument stood in the central plaza. It showed a human and a Valaric standing together, looking up at the stars. The inscription, written in both languages and dozens of others, read, "They heard us. They came. We are not alone." Children played around the monument, human and Valeric together. The next generation growing up in a galaxy where their peoples were allies. They didn't remember the fear, the destruction, the desperate hours when extinction seemed certain. They only knew the stories of the day strange ships appeared and changed everything in human space. The military academies were flooded with applicants. Young people who'd heard the stories of the resilience of Admiral Chen, of Marines fighting against impossible odds. They wanted to be part of something larger than themselves. But they were taught carefully. Their instructors, veterans of the Battle of Lumera Prime and the peacekeeping missions that followed, made sure they understood something crucial. Strength without compassion is tyranny. Commander Lisa Martinez told her class at the Mars Naval Academy. "We're not strong so we can dominate. We're strong so others don't have to be. Never forget that. We're the survivors, but we survived so we could protect those who couldn't." Back on Earth, in a small apartment in Snow Paulo, an old woman watched the news coverage of humanity's expanding role in the galaxy. Her grandson sat beside her, excited about his acceptance to the Space Navy. "Grandma," he asked, "do you think we're really heroes? Like the news says?" She thought about her own youth, about the wars she'd seen, about the struggles humanity had endured. No, child. We're not heroes. We're just survivors who decided to help other survivors. That's all. But sometimes, that's enough. Gosh. In the Kreneth Empire, military doctrine was being rewritten. No longer would they assume peaceful species were easy prey. The humans had taught them a valuable lesson. Strength doesn't always look like weapons and aggression. Sometimes it looks like determination and the willingness to sacrifice for others. Young Kreneth officers studied the Battle of Lumera. Prime not as a defeat, but as a learning experience. They examined human tactics, human psychology, human endurance, and they came to respect the species that had humiliated them. We thought we were strong because we conquered, a Kreneth instructor told his students. But true strength is protecting, not taking. The humans understand this. Perhaps one day we will too. 5 years after first contact, Ambassador Thyra stood in her office on Lumera Prime, preparing for a ceremony. Admiral Chen was visiting, and they were about to sign a formal alliance between the Valeric Collective and the United Human Systems. It was a formality, really. The alliance had existed since the moment human ships appeared in Valeric space. Nervous? Asked Ven, who was now the Collective's Minister of Defense, a position that hadn't existed before the Kreneth invasion. Grateful, Thyra corrected. I keep thinking about that night in the shelter when we were sure we were going to die. When I sent that message, not knowing if anyone would hear, if anyone would care, and the Deathworlders answered, Thyra smiled. They hate that name, you know? Sarah told me they prefer humanity, but the galaxy gave them that nickname, and it stuck. Because it's accurate, Ven said. They came from a death world. They survived what should have killed them, and then they used that survival to save us. The door opened, and Sarah Chen walked in. Older now, but still carrying that presence. That weight of someone who'd seen combat and carried the weight of command. But she smiled when she saw Thyra, and they embraced as friends. Ready to make this official? Sarah asked. I've been ready since the day you arrived, Thyra replied, as they walked to the ceremony. Sarah looked out at the rebuilt city at Valeric and human children playing together. At a future neither species could have imagined 5 years ago. Thank you, Thyra said quietly. For answering, for coming when no one else would. Sarah squeezed her friend's shoulder gently. That's what family does. And like it or not, Ambassador, you're stuck with us now. The galaxy has Deathworlders, and we've decided you're worth protecting. Thyra laughed. I can think of worse fates. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, another milestone in humanity's integration into galactic civilization. But for those who'd been there, who'd lived through the desperate hours, who'd seen impossible odds overcome through courage and determination, it was something simpler. It was proof that in a vast, cold universe, sometimes someone hears your call for help. Sometimes someone comes. And sometimes those someones change everything.